Hi friends, we're back to talk about the first 200 pages of Thackeray's Vanity Fair, and we want to start out today by talking about the role of women and men, I guess, in the novel, and some of the kind of cynical things that Thackeray is observing about the relationships between men and women. He talks about how badly women treat each other, and I thought that was actually kind of a relevant thing to say today even. He talks about how badly the women gossip about each other and say terrible things about each other. And of course he's talking partly about how Amelia gets treated by all the other girls. She's not really popular with them, and he ends up kind of concluding that she's better off. The women who get spoken of badly by the other women are actually the best women of all, and everybody's gossiping about them behind their backs because they're actually threatened by them.
Which puts Becky Sharp in an interesting position.
Because she's not being gossiped about, you mean?
But ultimately, you know that she's going to end up being the target of all sorts of character assassination in here. And the narrator does have this sort of love-hate relationship with her. So I wonder if that's part of where it's going to pull together.
You think she's going to end up being the victim of character assassination?
Or I think they're going to try, but she's Teflon.
I think she's going to be the one who succeeds. I mean, because this is a very cynical, we're getting kind of a cynical view of human nature here. I was just going to quote from the beginning of chapter 12, which is titled "Quite a Sentimental Chapter." The narrator is speaking for himself, and he's saying, I see the women gossiping about each other, but what I see for myself is actually that these are really wonderful women. I see all the men in a cluster round Mrs. White's chair, all the young fellows battling to dance with Miss Brown, and so I am tempted to think that to be despised by her sex, as these women apparently are, is a very great compliment to a woman. I thought that was kind of an interesting observation that you could just as easily say today about how women treat each other and talk about each other behind their backs.
And I think that the men in this section are kind of interesting because you have some extremes, right? You have Osborne, who is continually reminding me of Gaston from, what's the...
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, right? He's this he can outdrink everyone and outpunch everyone and go Gaston. His foil is Dobbin, who is this super good guy and is sort of the conscience of the soldiers. Part of what I find interesting is I haven't seen a character yet who brings those two things together. They seem like they're split off from each other right now.
So the man who is really the moral character can't also be popular with the other men.
Right. So it's sort
kind
of
the same thing he's saying about the women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Sedleys, right, whose money falls out on them. And there's a passage, who has not remarked the readiness with which the closest of friends and honestest of men suspect and accuse each other of cheating when they fall out on money matters. And so this inability here of men to sort of see through the moment, and their loyalty just vanishes over something like a money matter is really cynical and really sad for this part. And I think that there's something similar that goes on in relationships where loyalties, I thought in these 100 pages, seem to be sort of a battlefield, and there's all this struggle in the relationship, and then all of a sudden it'll flip in a new direction.
We were talking earlier also about quick pivots like that, where things can change so quickly, like the fortunes of the Sedley family. They're wealthy and they're doing well, and all of a sudden, and actually that's also the result of other men treating Mr. Sedley badly. And then the family's fortunes change so quickly, and they end up out on the street, basically.
Right, well, and it's the family's fortunes writ large, because it's not just their finances, it's their social standing, it's their marriage opportunities. So the family for generations is affected by this crisis.
Yeah, and we're told that it has something to do with the Napoleonic War, which is going on behind the scenes this whole time. Like, that's what the soldiers are there for. And Amelia is afraid at one point that George is going to get called up to fight. I think maybe in another video, maybe we can do a little more research on the Napoleonic Wars and think about how that's playing in here, because he doesn't really explicitly talk about it very much. But anyway, we have those quick turns. And of course, the big one is the moment when we find out Becky's actually married. So Lady Crawley dies and Sir Pitt proposes to Becky. And she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I would really like to marry you, but I'm already married." And I thought, oh, she's so sly. She's just making that up. She's not really married. She's just telling him
and
that.
how is she going to weasel out of this lie?
Right. But it turns out she is really married. But then the kind of sneaky thing that just doesn't seem right is, we talked about this a little bit with some friends who we're reading with, that the narrator kind of says, "Oh, I was so surprised to hear that too." And we were saying, that seemed kind of like a cheat. Like, he shouldn't be allowed to just toss that bomb in there without having set it up at all.
Well, and one of our astute readers also said, this is partly because this was a serialized novel, and
maybe.
There's just a need for cliffhangers, and maybe the need got a little excessive in this case.
We just didn't get any warning.
No.
And I mean, that seems like a funny thing to say, because there should be surprises in a novel, but you have to let the reader in on something that makes it plausible.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want your reader to feel cheated.
Or tricked.
Right, or tricked,
It's
right?
more like tricked.
Right, because then the reader's not on your side as a storyteller.
Yeah. So there's another example of quick changes of fortune, only in this case, kind of quick changes.
So is Thackeray doing to us what the characters are doing to each other?
Yeah, maybe. So another thing I wanted to talk about was Vanity Fair itself, because when I got to the point where we find out for sure that George Osborne is a philanderer, he's a terrible match for Amelia. She's such a sweet character, and she's so in love with him, and he's not worthy of her love and affection. And that's so disappointing. And at the same time, I thought, well, of course, this is Vanity Fair. Is a happy ending even possible in Vanity Fair? And I started to think, ooh, what have we gotten what have we waded into here? Yeah. Dobbin so sweetly goes out and secretly buys her piano, and the family has to auction off all their stuff, and then doesn't even take credit for it. And so it almost seems like Thackeray's setting up, are Amelia and Dobbin going to end up together? And then I thought, this is Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
Are we going to get any happy endings here?
It doesn't seem to be set that way. And it could be just that we're early on and things need to look impossible. But it seems like that's more of sort of an Act 3 situation. I don't think we're at the darkest days yet.
Yes, but we're not reading a romance, are we? We're reading a satire.
Right.
So, I don't know. We're in Vanity Fair, so everybody's behavior is going to be bad.
Yeah, they're so extreme. Osborne is just so bad.
I mean, obviously Amelia and Becky are set up as foils for each other, or as contrasts with each other.
But I wonder also if this is partly satire, where satire you don't necessarily have realistic, nuanced characters. Maybe they are meant to be more types than individuals.
Yeah, I think that's right. What's going to happen to the good girl and what's going to happen to the bad girl? I don't know. This is Vanity Fair, so anything could happen, but it's probably not going to be good.
Well, right. I mean, it's the novel that's in the background of this is Pilgrim's Progress, as you were talking about, right? And so that sort of that allegory of journey and goodness and punishment and things like
good
that
versus evil
is echoing in here.
Although Christian, the character in Pilgrim's Progress, does eventually make it through all of the trials.
Right. But
So
the trials are rough.
Maybe there's hope here that's I don't know. It's Vanity Fair. I mean, he gets out of Vanity Fair, but I don't know if these characters are ever going to get out of Vanity Fair. So anyway, we're really early on in this read. We're only at page 200. We got to pick up the pace a little bit if we want to finish this by the end of the year. We're a quarter of the way through the novel at this point, so who knows if any of our observations are going to turn out to be valuable at all. But that's what this is all about, is kind of showing you our thinking along the way, which is part of the fun of it. Please join in with us. Leave some comments below if you'd like to read along with us. We would love to hear what you're thinking as you read Vanity Fair as well. And when we get to page 300, we'll be back.